Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and get ready to go deep. We are going deep dive Saturday right now on a subject that I think really hasn't gotten its due, especially recently. I feel like after the President of the United States guaranteed us that we were going to finally get all of the JFK documents, and he failed not once, but then 6 months later, he failed again. And since then, we just haven't heard anything about them. Obviously, we're not going to get all the documents, and many of them are going to remain classified. Now, many years ago, I did a documentary film called Invisible Empire, and in it, I show a document that I think was put out by like a local NBC or ABC affiliate back in 2004. I specifically remember, if you go to the Internet Archives, Paul Joseph Watson's Propaganda Matrix covered it, InfoWars covered it, and ever since then, it's been gone. And when I looked at this document, I was kind of blown away because it was a document from the head of the CIA at the time, John McCone, to, let's make sure that we can get in here, to the head of the Secret Service at the time, James Rowley. Now, I want to say this right now. There are many people that think they have debunked this document. For instance, there's a Steemit article here, and in it, I've read it. Basically, they overlay this and say, look, these are other documents. They've been moved. I'm not quite convinced that that is, in fact, the case. Is it a possibility? There is a possibility there. Absolutely. But when I saw that James Corbett had said, people are promoting this document that's obviously fake that I respect, I thought he was referring to me, and I said, you know what? I absolutely respect James Corbett. So I've got to find out whether there is any truth to this document. So I took a closer look, okay? And we're going to take just a close look really quickly of this document, because in it, it claims that Oswald was trained by the CIA under the Office of Naval Intelligence for Soviet assignment during preliminary training in 1957. Subject was, well, I'm sorry, I have a better one. Subject was, active in aerial reconnaissance of mainland China and maintain a security clearance up to confidential level at that point. Now, we're going to find a whole bunch of stuff out, but what really got me was this right here. He is particularly concerned about the Brueys memorandum, which Central Intelligence has obtained and which I understand you have obtained. It is imperative that this information, at least for the time, remain under wraps. And he talks about how Hoover, the head of the FBI, also has this. Okay? So now we've got the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA, and the head of the Secret Service, all talking about this Brueys memorandum. So I said to myself, well, let's find out if this is a real document, because not only does it claim that Oswald was trained by the CIA, but the people that did this were rogue agents of all three. Okay, and that's going to fit in. Guys, buckle up, because we're going to be here for at least an hour, maybe a little bit more. So I start searching, and I did find something. And I did a whole video on it. So some of the stuff will be overlapped, but the majority of stuff in this video, Kennedy Killers Revealed, How to Name Names, is all here. It's a 40-minute doc, and that is behind me, Warren C. Brueys. And what are you looking at here? What are you looking at? Well, you're looking at the fact that Warren C. Brueys wrote the initial, look how to Google it right here. You write this little passage up and you'll find this. The initial investigation into JFK the night of the assassination. Let me repeat that. It is without debate that the man that is in the title of this did the initial investigation into the JFK murder. And we have never seen that document. How big could that document be? Right? So here it is. Remember, this is an FBI Society trade magazine for special agents. I believe that the publication date on this says 96, and then in 98. He was still alive in those days. I want to say, we're going to actually show you part of his funeral in a second. I really did as much as I possibly could to track this guy down. So here it is. It's the same quote that you just saw there, but there's Warren C. Brueys. And it turns out that it was 800 plus pages. Let's read it together. In Dallas, to the Kennedy assassination investigation, where he also directed the overnight analysis, composition, and assembling of the first report, consisting of 800 plus pages. Now, as far as I can tell, this is the first time the Brueys memorandum is put on paper by any FBI publication whatsoever in 1996. So this document that started circulating in the early 90s either had to have some kind, if it's fake, had to have some kind of information about Warren C. Brueys in that memorandum, or this is a real document. Think about that. How would they know about the memorandum and to put it in there and how important it was if they didn't even know it existed, or it was never said to have existed? And again, you can go check those, I think it's about a 3-pager, right? Yep. You can check all that stuff out. Pretty easy to find. But like I said, there are debunkers. Now, I want to go all the way because I found some stuff on Brueys afterwards that he had given testimony in 1976 during the House Senate Intelligence Committee, where he was upset about a documentary that CBS had done where it claimed that Oswald was his informant. That was a part of the story I didn't know. You see, if you watch this video I did with Kennedy Killers, what do I establish in it? Well, I established that he did the initial 800-page investigation. That's because he was in Dallas. Now, he was a special agent in charge over at New Orleans, but guess who his subject was? It was 100% Oswald. Those documents are in this video. We're not going to go over them again, but if you watch this video, I'll show you in the archives that have been released. Not only was Brueys in charge of watching Oswald during the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, but he followed Oswald to Dallas prior to the assassination. And then when the assassination happened, remember, this guy follows him in. When the assassination happens, he becomes the lead investigator overnight. And guess who he does that at the behest of? Let's see if we can find it here. We're going to scroll through all this stuff. I'm sorry. There it is right there. So I found this. Requested by President Johnson. This is his family's blog putting up. He had special assignments in Miami, Dallas, where he was assigned to the Kennedy assassination investigation, directing the analysis, composition, and assembly of the first report requested by President Johnson. And that's going to come important because when I found out, and by the way, let's just scroll right up. You can see here is his, by the way, here's his Department of Naval Intelligence right there. Oh, weird. Department of the Navy. His military intelligence. This is his son receiving the flag. This is absolutely, obviously him. Okay. In fact, if you take a look, we're going to see Warren in a bit. I would assume this is his grandson, and he looks exactly like him. Okay. So when I find out that he did give testimony in 76, I also find out about this documentary. Now, CBS and Dan Rather had done extensive things on the assassination of Kennedy, even prior to this. And this American Assassin series was actually a 4 separate hours part that also looked at RFK and MLK. Now, I did not watch those parts. However, I absolutely watched the entire part that Brueys was complaining about in his testimony. Now, I have not read the entire testimony. I'd like to get to. The problem is it's not in PDF format, and I wasn't able to download this. If anybody can or has I tried to get the PDF version so I could search through it. But, I skimmed through it. I read a little bit. And he wanted to counter the idea that Oswald was his informant. Well, I got to tell you, all the evidence points to that. All of it. And we're going to get there. In fact, we found the documentary, okay? And the documentary is just full of pure gold because it shows from start to finish that, yeah, all the evidence shows that not only was Oswald watched by the FBI and an FBI informant, but he was also Central Intelligence Agency, which the person that says that Brueys was handling him okay, he was also a confirmed FBI informant, and we'll show you the documentation that not only did they think that he was an FBI informant, but they also believed he worked for the CIA. This man, by the way, if you're looking at this, this is a 1978 document. Here's Warren C. Brueys. Here's Oswald. And they're talking to this Pena individual. Arrest Pena. Now, Pena talks about him being, seeing Brueys with him a number of times, talking to him. But you noticed Pena worked in some capacity for another United States government agency, which he refused to identify. And Pena is going to work into this on many different levels. I want to get there, okay? I want to say that right now. So it looks like they show him evidence, Pena, that he was also working for the CIA. He just wouldn't admit it. This is a confirmed actual document. So now, without further ado, we're going to start breaking down parts of this documentary that clearly show that Warren C. Brueys is the key to finding out what exactly happened, as we don't have that 800-page memo, that initial investigation. We've never seen it, ever, okay? And there's a reason we haven't seen it, because it shows you exactly how this happened. And by the way, Johnson, Brueys, the intelligence community, this rogue network, very real. And we're going to get into all those aspects. But I wanted to play Johnson first, because Johnson wasn't a stupid guy. Remember, he requested this report that is supposedly referenced only once in a fake document, an alleged fake document, okay, that names the Brueys memorandum as the memorandum that says that Oswald was CIA and that this was a rogue network of Secret Service, FBI, and CIA agents that did this. Remember, this is supposed to be fake, yet somehow it knew about the Brueys memorandum, which is 100% real. And, you know, for the first time, a lot of you people are actually going to see Warren C. Brueys lie through his teeth and say he had never seen Oswald or didn't know Oswald prior or after the fact. Let me explain something to you. If you are doing the initial investigation in Dallas, at the very least, and by the way, the documents that we go over in the other video that you need to watch clearly show he was following Oswald and that he followed him over. It's undisputable. Those were released, okay? So he's lying there. If you're conducting this investigation and Oswald is still alive, which he was, do you think that FBI agent in charge would go interview him? Would go see him? Of course he would. Of course he would. And all these guys are sitting there with a smug goddamn smile on their mouth when they're talking. William Colby, the head of the CIA at the time, also does interviews in this, but you're going to see all of it. And now Johnson, not being stupid, knowing that they have gotten far from the truth, says this. And this is called misdirection.
I can't honestly say that I've ever been completely relieved of the fact that there might have been international connections.
You mean you still feel that there might have been?
Well, I have not completely discounted.
We'll have more on Johnson's beliefs later. In addition to the question of whether government agencies were involved in the crime itself, is the question of whether they covered up knowledge about it and didn't tell the Warren Commission the whole truth. Oswald's connections with the CIA and the FBI and with Cuba groups are entwined with his activities in years prior to the assassination. He enlisted in the Marine Corps at Fort Worth, Texas, 6 days after his 17th birthday. He served 15 months overseas, most of it in Japan, at the Atsugi Air Base, from which U-2 flights were launched to spy on China. The Warren report said Oswald did not have access to U-2 material, but one of his officers, John Donovan, says otherwise.
Lee was a radar man, and he surveilled for aircraft, both known and unknown. He also was a plotter, meaning he plotted the positions of the aircraft he saw or one of his counterparts saw.
Lay out for me what information he could have had that the Soviets would have been interested in at the time he went to the Soviet Union.
In relation to the U-2?
In relation to the U-2.
We did pick it up. You could see it on our altimeter. It went to altitudes well beyond what we were capable of detecting. Lee, if he had any insight at all, he could have certainly put two and two together. He would have known that he had a high-flying aircraft, and he did know that.
What kind of classification would Oswald have to do the kind of work that he was doing?
He would have had to have had a minimum of secret, because you do not allow anyone in the door who does not have a secret clearance.
So let's stop there. So right there, you have another person that worked with him in the military talking about higher level clearances than he was supposed to have. Again, this is a 1976 documentary.
While in the Marine Corps, Oswald learned to speak and read Russian. He claimed he taught himself. Some critics of the Warren Report believe Oswald was trained as a spy while in the Marine Corps and was taught the language in anticipation of being sent to Russia. William Colby, the present director of the CIA, says that is not true.
Now look at this smug-ass mother trucker. He's got the little smirk on. I mean, he knowingly lies here again and again and again and tries to say that the CIA had no knowledge of him whatsoever. They weren't following him. Later on, they disproved that, even in 1976, showing at least one document on him. But once again, the idea that Colby is telling the truth here is absolutely insane.
Director Colby, did the CIA recruit Lee Harvey Oswald when he was in the Marines and send him to Russia?
No. We had no contact with Mr. Oswald.
No contact before he went to the Soviet Union?
No contact with him before he went to the Soviet Union. No contact with him after he returned from the Soviet Union. No contact with him while he was in the Soviet Union.
Oswald did leave the service in an unusual manner. He asked for a discharge a few months before his scheduled release, saying that his mother was ill and without work and he wanted to help her. But instead of doing that, he returned to Fort Worth, remained home only a few days, and then sailed off on a freighter bound for France. He was en route to Moscow. Oswald's mother told former CBS Dallas affiliate news director Eddie Barker that she has always believed her son was an agent for the CIA.
So stop. Again, 1976. Big cover story to get him over to the Soviet Union. And we're going to get into that Soviet Union stuff because, again, that memorandum that's supposedly fake talks extensively about his time in the Soviet Union as an agent. On the second page, they definitely talk about his time in the Soviet Union. They actually asked the question whether or not he could possibly have been, mind controlled at the time. And, again, Brueys brought up again here, again in the documents. This is what I'm talking about. There's no way for me to believe that somehow someone faked a document that had Brueys' name in it and knew that he was Oswald's handler prior and that he was the one that did the initial investigation. It's just nonsense. So, again, the validity of these documents really has to be looked at. But whether you believe in them or not, here comes, Oswald's mother saying, here she is, that Oswald was absolutely CIA. She always believed it.
This is what they tell the American people. They go into great details that Lee Harvey Oswald got out of the Marine Corps 3 months ahead of time because his mother had an accident, which was the truth, and it all went through the Red Cross legitimately. And when he came home, he stayed with his mother 3 days. We sort of know that story. And then he left for Russia. Now, how can Lee Harvey Oswald get out of the Marine Corps 3 months ahead of time on a dire need discharge and at the same time be issued a passport to travel?
Oswald traveled to Moscow via London and Helsinki. 2 weeks after arriving, on a Saturday afternoon, he appeared at the United States Embassy and told Consul Richard Snyder that he wanted to renounce his citizenship.
So now, we're going to get into this consul thing. So now, in the very beginning, when he has to renounce his citizenship so he can go over to Russia, this man's going to talk about how it was definitely him, how, he ranted and raved, and then he did relay this information to both the military and FBI as that was standard practice.
I can recall him being brought into the office by the receptionist, and his saying, something to the effect, I've come to give up my American passport to renounce my citizenship. He said, as I can recall, I am a Marxist, and I intend to become a citizen of the Soviet Union.
Was it your impression that he had been in touch with Soviet authorities before he came to see you?
Oh, yes, yes. He made that clear. He said he, one way or another, probably in several ways, but he had applied for Soviet citizenship.
Here's a man who's been in the Marine Corps, worked at an important base in Japan. Didn't that raise a flag of concern in your mind or in someone's mind?
Yes, yes, it did. He did say that he had information from his Marine Corps service, and that he intended to make available to the Soviet authorities everything that he knew, everything that he had learned.
Let's stop right there. So as he's renouncing his citizenship, he's basically saying to them, yeah, I'm going to commit treason. Everything I've learned in the Marine Corps, I'm going to tell to the Soviets. Yeah, he was still given this clearance. Totally bizarre. Unless, what? You're an agent of intelligence and you're trying to build counter narratives that are confusing. And we'll get into all those counter narratives that were confusing. But we have to continue on this path where he's first going into the Soviet Union, how he got there.
Did anyone show any concern about it?
Well, there's no question in my mind that the department back here passed it on to the FBI and other and the military authority. I mean, that's a routine.
Any question in your mind that the person you saw was Lee Harvey Oswald? You've seen photographs of him since.
No question.
No question.
No question at all. The person I saw first and the person I saw last was one and the same Lee Harvey Oswald, yeah.
And
absolutely no question in my mind.
No question in your mind?
No.
At the time of the murder, John McCone, then CIA director, swore under oath that the agency had no connection with Oswald. But we know now they had a file on this former Marine who had gone to the embassy and announced that he was going to give military secrets to the Russians.
So once again, obviously the CIA, this is confirmed in 76, lies under oath, has a file on Oswald, and they're letting him defect to Russia to give out military secrets. Does that not sound like an intelligence operation?
CIA Director Colby told CBS News that his agency intercepted Oswald's mail, going both ways. In 1960, the Russians sent Oswald to Minsk, where he worked in a radio factory. The following year, in February 1961, he again contacted the American embassy in Moscow, this time seeking approval to return to the United States. In the meantime, he had met and married a 19-year-old Russian girl, Marina Nikolaevna Proshkova.
So let's stop. Now he's coming back. You know, again, without any kind of military training, intelligence training, how does he come back? How is he so fluent in Russian that he picks up a wife while he's there? These questions are kind of answered later on. I've talked about this, how he was extremely articulate, he was smart, he was on television, he was on radio, he was being promoted in the media at the time, prior to the assassination locally. These are all very important things. So once again, he goes in there, he probably gets some kind of a mission done under the guise that he's going to share secrets with the Russians.
A pharmacist. Mr. Snyder describes Oswald's reappearance at the embassy.
What happened when he came back to the embassy in 1961?
He was considerably subdued at that point. And he said, in effect, I've learned my lesson. I've learned a lesson the hard way.
In 1962, a daughter was born to the Oswalds, and by June they had received American and Russian permission to leave. They were given a loan of $435.71 by the State Department for travel expenses.
So let's stop there. The State Department is giving a defector, a man who announced he was going to be involved in treasonous activity, a loan of $400+ in the 60s, probably the equivalent of $2-3 grand now, maybe even more, if you adjust for inflation. Does that make sense to anybody unless he's still under some kind of an intelligence network? Should it make sense to anybody? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
2 weeks later, they arrived at Fort Worth.
Did anyone with the CIA debrief Oswald when he returned to this country?
No, the CIA did not debrief him. I think there are some unclassified or declassified reports of FBI debriefings, but the CIA did not debrief him.
Now let's stop. You notice how he goes right to the unclassified, declassified reports of FBI. So basically what he's saying to you is, no, these we probably did or we did, but I'm not going to say anything about it because they're classified. But we have these unclassified or declassified reports that we can talk about that will obfuscate the truth. That's what's going on here, okay? And again, it's very possible that those FBI debriefings happened and under the direction of Brueys himself or maybe somebody else. We're going to get to that.
Say to you, as I have before, that that's difficult
Look
for
at that
many
smirk.
people, and in all candor.
Wait. Look at that smirk. Let's stop it. Even right now, Rather is like, look at that smirk. I can't believe this. Let's just play what Rather says after his lie.
$71 by the State Department for travel expenses. 2 weeks later, they arrived at Fort Worth. Did anyone with the CIA debrief Oswald when he returned to this country?
No, the CIA did not debrief him. I think there are some unclassified or declassified reports of FBI debriefings, but the CIA did not debrief him.
Say to you, as I have before, that that's difficult for many people, and in all candor, difficult for me to believe. That a young man in the Marines, gets out of the Marines, goes to the Soviet Union, marries a Russian woman, moves back to this country, comes back into the society. And it is difficult to believe that the CIA did not, under some circumstances, debrief him.
Right. Well, I think I understand your doubt on this question. I think you have to look at the circumstances. Mr. Oswald was what can be called a defector to the Soviet Union. We did have a report on Mr. Oswald, which the FBI gave to us about it. We also received some material from the embassy in Moscow about Mr. Oswald when he tried to disclaim his citizenship. We had a little file, therefore, on Mr. Oswald, which consisted of the 2 reports from the FBI, the 2 reports from the embassy in Moscow, and 1 report from the Department of Navy, the Marines, I think it was, that indicating some exchange between them.
Oh, so now there's an exchange with the Department of Navy as well. But wait a minute, didn't that fake document say that the Office of Naval Intelligence, the fake document that has the Brueys memorandum in there and the only, print that I saw before 1996 that showed there was a memorandum, you're telling me that the Office of Naval Intelligence, that document said trained him for the CIA. They're interested, and you're talking about that as the head of the CIA now. Interesting.
That's all we had until roughly October of 1963.
Victor Marchetti, author of The CIA and the Cult of Intelligence, who worked with the agency for 14 years, believes there is still more the public doesn't know about Oswald and the CIA.
Now, I want to say this. This guy, as a 14-year deep author, he's extremely smart here. He says things that are absolutely right. And basically, just to summarize, I'm going to let you listen to him, but he says, look, first of all, McCone should know better than to ever say that somebody in the CIA never contacted him, at least to his knowledge. He should have added that. And 2, although he can't believe the CIA themselves would do it, rogue networks or agents absolutely capable of doing so.
John McCone, then the CIA director, swore to the Warren Commission that the agency had never communicated with Oswald in any way, directly or indirectly. Do you think this eliminates the possibility that the agency debriefed Oswald on his return from the Soviet Union, or that he was in some other way connected or contacted with the CIA?
I think John McCone should know better than to ever make such a blanket statement with regard to the CIA after having been director of that agency. I would think he would want to add to that, to my knowledge. They could very well have dealt with him without McCone ever being informed. I think that the CIA knows more about the circumstances surrounding the Kennedy assassination that have not yet been made public about their relationships with Oswald, and that the agency has covered up. I'm going on the assumption that the CIA had nothing to do with the Kennedy assassination. I cannot believe to this day that the CIA, as an institution, people running the CIA that I knew would have been party to any sort of a crime of this sort, murdering a president of the United States. This doesn't mean that there may not have been individuals either acting on their own or who were only remotely connected with the agency in some capacity as a contract agent or formerly a contract agent who may have been involved.
Right there. contract agents. And remember, if you look at this fake McCone document that they're talking about, it's exactly what they're talking about. Rogue agents, a rogue network, and we can't let this information get out to the public. That's the deal. Let's oh man. I mean, think about it. You got an ex-CIA agent openly talking about how McCone should not have said what he said. He talks about contract agents. He talks about informants. And everything in this fake document is coinciding what we're watching, what we're seeing. Okay? So let's continue on with this. I didn't even know about this thing until really looking into Brueys and finding out that he testified to the Senate House Intelligence Committee, basically trying to refute that he was Oswald's handler.
In June 1963, Oswald applied for a new passport in New Orleans, indicating he wanted to visit Cuba and, again, Russia. Despite his visit to Russia and his attempt to renounce his citizenship there, Oswald this time got another passport in one day. The legal section of the Passport Office of the State Department.
Now let's stop. Now, despite all this, Oswald gets a passport in one day. I want you to look at that date. Now, we already talked about this Pena person. You're going to meet Pena, okay? He's in this. But what I think is really important is the fact that Pena himself, in this document, talks about how, look at that. See that? June 24th, 1963? Well, he says he went to get a passport on the same exact day, and Oswald wasn't even there. So the guy that the FBI, or the FBI informant under Brueys, and Brueys, by the way, doesn't even deny that this guy, Pena, is his informant, who says that he also handled Oswald, that he had met Oswald several times, also happened to get a passport the same day and say that he never saw him there at all. At all. That's really interesting. So did they just give this passport to him after the fact? Is this misinformation again to muddy the waters, or was this again put out there to just confuse the entire situation? So again, you look at this, look at their document, the passport. There it is, June 24th, 1963. They talked about Pena. Pena cannot corroborate that Oswald was there. And he also says he does not know why his name was omitted from the State Department list. Pena says his name was omitted, and we're going to talk about omitted documents, especially omitted FBI documents, as we keep going through this CBS piece from 1976. So let's continue there.
It says now that getting such quick treatment in an office such as New Orleans is not unusual. But there was apparently a slip-up, which the State Department insists today was simply a clerical error. Oswald's previous activities should have caused his name to be flagged in the files to raise questions about his eligibility for another passport. Instead, the new passport was simply handed to him. Many people insist that he must have had secret assistance from the CIA to get that passport.
Especially if he wasn't even there. Especially if we can't even corroborate that the man went and got the passport physically. And there's somebody who's worked with intelligence agencies going on the record saying he was there and he didn't see him.
The CIA denies it. In September 1963, Oswald is supposed to have traveled by bus to Mexico City, where he visited the Cuban and Russian embassies seeking visas. The Cubans, it is said, refused to give him anything, apparently after checking with the Russians. After the assassination, the Warren Commission asked the CIA for anything they had on Oswald. What the staff received from the CIA was this photograph of a man the agency tentatively identified as Lee Oswald going into the Cuban embassy.
So let's stop. This to me is purposeful disinformation. Okay, they knew this wasn't Lee Oswald, and I know there's a talk of two different Oswalds and all that stuff, but I truly believe that they put this picture out there to muddy the waters and to misdirect people. That's what all this evidence shows.
It obviously is not Oswald.
Director Colby. During his visit to Mexico in September 1963, you had Oswald under surveillance at both the Russian and Cuban embassies?
No. We did not have him under surveillance. We became aware of a contact he made with each of those embassies.
Did you make voice recordings of him?
think there were, yes.
So now, I've never heard any voice recordings of Oswald 2 months prior to the assassination that the CIA recorded, yet you have the director sitting here talking about it. Was that part of the dump? Did I miss that part of the dump, Mr. Trump? The first one or the second one? I don't think we got that, did we? Yet you have Colby here, literally 40 plus years ago, or I'm sorry, not 40 plus. Yeah, no, it is 40 plus. Hell yeah, 40 plus years ago, telling people about it.
Why was the Warren Commission given a photograph of another man at the Cuban embassy, wrongly identified as Lee Harvey Oswald?
Well, it wasn't wrongly identified as Lee Harvey Oswald. We knew that he was in these embassies at a certain day. And we looked at the capability we had to photograph certain things in the city. And we looked at, through the photographs, hoping that we could find perhaps a photograph of him as he came in or went out of one of these embassies. We did focus on one which we thought might be him. And this was flown up to Dallas, labeled an unidentified white male. That was the identification of it. But it was flown up in case it could be helpful at that time. But
tool of misinformation, that's all that was.
There was not a photograph wrongly labeled. It turned out not to be Mr. Oswald.
Yeah, no shit.
Clearly. And we, to this day, don't know who he is.
Who, critics ask, is this man? Is he a CIA agent posing as Oswald? Where is the photograph of Oswald?
In any event, we know that Oswald was, probably correctly and routinely, interviewed by the FBI on his return. But he had a lot more to do with the Bureau than just that. In April 1963, Oswald was working in New Orleans, while Marina and their child were living with a friend, Ruth Payne, in Irving, a suburb of Dallas.
It was in New Orleans, during the summer of 1963, that Oswald resurfaced as a controversial figure. And he did this at both extremes of the political spectrum.
This is important. So now, this is the point. Again, I want to show everybody this. These are the documents we were able to get. Please, if you have not seen, this is over at, it's now News for a Change, the backup channel, Kennedy's Killers Revealed, How to Name Names. If you watch that, I show you in it all these documents showing Warren C. Brueys in New Orleans following Oswald, okay? We go over them again and again and again. You could see the documentation there. Absolutely. Absolutely there. He absolutely followed him down. And then he stayed. Here we go. Here's some FBI documents that show that. Go watch that video. So what's he doing while he's at this Fair Play for Cuba committee? He's playing both sides. He's playing both sides. Now, who would play both sides? You think he's playing both sides because he's some kind of a revolutionary? No. He's an intelligence asset. He's getting information on people. He's doing his job. And this, to me, illustrates that like no other. He's playing both sides. Pro-Castro, anti-Castro. He's doing it on behalf of the government. Check it out.
For a couple of months, he worked here at Riley & Company on the top floor, oiling its coffee roasting machinery. But soon he began to slip away during working hours, spending his time at the Crescent City garage next door, reading gun magazines, discussing weapons with the garage's owner. On July 19th, 1963, Oswald was fired. Then, on August 5th, he entered this store on Decatur Street in New Orleans, offering his military skills to an anti-Castro organization. He spoke to the owner, Carlos Brueys, a Cuban refugee, a leader in the New Orleans anti-Castro movement. He returned the following day with his guidebook for Marines to verify his military background and competency. Then, 3 days later, Oswald's politics appeared to take a swing in the opposite direction. He was observed here on Canal Street, handing out pro-Castro leaflets.
So there you go. He goes in, he starts talking anti-Castro, and then he's Fair Play for Cuba, and he's pro-Castro.
Brueys confronted him. The police arrived. Oswald's first arrest followed.
I was surprised to find out that the man who was with a sign in the front telling Viva Fidel and Hands Off Cuba was this same man, Lee Harvey Oswald, who 4 days before had been in my store asking to have an opportunity to train Cubans to fight against Castro.
So check it out. Not only that, he gets arrested, right? So 4 days after he's spitting some nonsense about being, pro-Castro, or I'm sorry, anti-Castro to this guy, then he's pro-Castro. They get in an altercation and fight so badly that disturbing the peace is the charge. But think about it. The police came and arrested him. Okay? Now, listen to what happens once he's arrested.
That arrest seemed to be routine. The charge, disturbing the peace. But then something curious occurred. Oswald requested to see an FBI agent. Special Agent John Quigley came to see him and interviewed Oswald at length. Oswald pleaded guilty to the charge against him. He paid a $10 fine and left jail. A few days later, he was back handing out pro-Castro leaflets, this time with another man whom he had hired to assist him. He was a celebrity of sorts, receiving television coverage, being interviewed about politics and foreign affairs.
So let's stop it there. So he requests an FBI agent come visit him after being arrested. He pays a $10 fine, leaves, and keeps doing the same thing. This time in front of television cameras and radio microphones.
You're a Marxist?
Well, I have studied Marxist philosophy, yes, sir, and also other philosophers.
But are you a Marxist? I think you did admit on an earlier radio interview that you consider yourself a Marxist.
Well, I would very definitely say that I am a Marxist. That is correct. But that does not mean, however, that I'm a communist.
In your work with the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, what are you advocating?
We advocate restoration of diplomatic, trade, and tourist relations with Cuba.
On August 21st, a radio debate on Cuba took place at WDSU Radio. Among the participants were Oswald, Brueys.
See, and that's also what's really odd, is after the fact, Brueys is in a radio debate with this guy after it seems like Oswald was trying to set him up. All right? And I think that this debate may actually be public. I have listened to one radio interview with Oswald about Cuba. After the fact, he sounds very intelligent. If you just saw him in that video, he sounds very intelligent.
And Edward Butler, Executive Director of the Information Council of the Americas, a self-styled anti-communist organization headquartered in New Orleans. Edward Butler is still the acting head of that anti-communist organization.
When I met Oswald, he was a very, very articulate, very much together, and very, very competent as a propagandist. It kind of goes against the public image that most people have of Oswald as a very inarticulate, incapable, kind of non-compass mentis character. He wasn't that at all. He knew what he was saying and knew what he was doing and did it quite well for a 24-year-old.
Boom! So think about it. Trained by the military, clearances, obviously, FBI something or other. You know, an informant, you could say that. Probably not an agent of the agency. The fake document claims that he was trained by the CIA through the Office of Naval Intelligence. He knows all these languages. He marries a woman. He's able to leave the country. He's able to come back after he said he was going to be treasonous. He's getting bailed out of jail after altercations that are extremely suspicious by FBI agents.
But Oswald seems to have had other links besides the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, whose New Orleans chairman and sole member he then was. The owner of the Havana bar, Oriste Paño, told Bruce Hall that he has a different version of Oswald than the one Edward Butler retains.
Did any of the people you saw having a meeting with Lee Harvey Oswald, were any of these FBI agents?
Yes. Warren C. DeBrew.
Warren C. DeBrew. So this is it. This is the dude. This is Pena. And remember, Pena is the person that we have this document where, again, he says that not only was DeBrew his handler, but he was an FBI informant for DeBrew. All right? There it is. And then you have this passport connection that we've already went over. Guys, if you're missing any of this, I promise you, you're going to want to watch it from the beginning. This is the deep dive, baby. We're going JFK deep dive, how to name names, where the real investigation is, and why Warren C. DeBrew is the key to all of this, at least to finding out the truth. Because, again, I'm going to show it to you before I go back to him. We know, without a doubt, through this Society of the FBI internal booklet that was published in 1996 and then republished in 1998, that he directed the overnight analysis, composition, and assembling of the first report consisting of 800 plus pages on the Kennedy assassination. And we further know that he did so under the direction, according to his family, okay, under the direction of, yes, President Johnson. There it is. There it is. So we're talking about him now. He's being named by his informant. We're about to meet Warren C. DeBrew.
Warren DeBrew is an FBI agent, and you saw him with Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yes, I knew Warren C. DeBrew very well because I used to work with him.
What did you do with Warren DeBrew?
I was an informer for the FBI about the people in New Orleans.
What happened when the FBI agent, whom you said you had seen with Lee Harvey Oswald, who was also the man you were the informant for, what happened when he came to the bar before you went to the Warren Commission?
About 10 days before I went to testify at the Warren Commission, could be less than 10 days. He came and he called me from behind the bar and said he wanted to talk to me. He called me on the table and he told me he was very, very nervous. Very nervous. And he told me, if you ever talk anything about me, I will get rid of you ass. Yours and those words.
So this is Warren. Take a look at this smug mother trucker, huh? Look at that face, huh? Oh, we should believe this guy. I mean, he blatantly lies here. Again, provably lies. You're going to see him lie and lie and lie some more. All right? Now, that guy said that he was about to testify to the Warren Commission about 10 days before, and DeBrew comes in and says that he's nervous, and if he says anything about him, he is going to take his ass out. Yeah, no big deal.
Warren C. DeBrews is now the special agent in charge of the FBI office in San Juan, Puerto Rico. He talked to Bruce Hall.
Did you know Arresta Pena, who is the operator of the Habana Bar in New Orleans? What was your relationship with him?
He was an individual that I recall having contacted perhaps as many as a dozen times. I suppose during the early 1960s, prior to the assassination of President Kennedy.
Arresta Pena says that he was, in a literal sense, an informer for the FBI, and that he knew you well because you were his contact man with the FBI, and that on numerous occasions he saw you and Lee Harvey Oswald together, and in particular in a Greek restaurant in New Orleans in the French Quarter. What is your response to that?
My response to that is he is wrong in his statements. I have never seen Lee Harvey Oswald at any time in my life personally, nor have I talked to him by telephone knowingly.
Notice how he puts in the knowingly thing there? That's him saying that because he knows that there's a chance of recordings with him and Oswald taking place. He's lying right now 110% by the documents we have, and you can go to those archives, type his name in. Again, the special agent in charge of following Oswald from New Orleans into Dallas, transferred prior to the assassination, stays there to do the initial investigation after the fact, the overnight analysis. Oswald is still alive. Can you see the bullshit coming out of this guy's fucking smirk? I mean, give me a break.
I've had absolutely no contact, no personal knowledge, first-hand contact with Lee Harvey Oswald, nor do I have any secondary contact with him.
Was Lee Harvey Oswald an informant of the FBI?
He was not my informant, and I have no information whatsoever that he had ever been an informant for the FBI.
Did you ever use the phrase to get your ass or threaten Arresta Pena in any way in connection with his Warren Commission testimony?
I certainly don't recall ever having made that a statement to Orestes Pena. My recollection is that I treated him with a great deal of patience and with due respect. There would have been no reason whatsoever for me to have made such a statement.
William Walter was an FBI security code clerk in the New Orleans office of the FBI from 1961 until 1966.
Now, this guy, William Walter, worked for the FBI. He was a clerk. This is his first part. His second part might be even a little bit more damning. This is pretty goddamn damning. He's saying, without a doubt, 100%, that Lee Harvey Oswald was, in fact, what? An informant for the FBI. So we're supposed to be believing smirking intelligence officer, because he was in intelligence before and after the FBI. He switched through. If you look through Brueys' entire career, he's a total spook. We're supposed to believe Smirky McSpook. And now that we have the documents proving he's a liar, we're still supposed to believe him. But this guy, again, in 1976, talking about Oswald being what?
He told me about Oswald and the FBI.
Do you think Oswald was, by your definition and by the Bureau's definition, an informant?
Yes, I'm sure he was.
And you are certain, on the basis of what you did in the normal course of your duties, that Oswald's name was on the New Orleans FBI Office Security Index file?
I'm positive.
I'm positive. You notice there's no fucking smirk on this guy's face? You notice he's not happy to be there? You notice he's probably pretty nervous and upset that he even has to do this. And yet, when guys like Colby and Brueys are sitting up there, they're just happy as can be. No big deal. I'll lie right to your face.
I would say that's a falsehood. Had he been an informant, and had I had him as a subject of my investigation, it would have been logical that I would have been aware of that fact because of cross-references in the file and for many other reasons.
Yeah, you would have been aware of that fact. You're a liar. And in a second, he's going to basically talk about the file clerk's filings and not talk about and respectfully decline to discuss how the FBI works with that paperwork.
And I'd say that is a falsehood.
Mr. Walters also says that Oswald's name was on the security index file. Could Oswald's name have been on the security index file, and what was the security index file?
I have no idea at this time whether his name was on any type of special index, and as relates to what you term a security index file, I'd rather not get into the discussion of administrative techniques employed within the office and respectfully decline to answer that question.
There's nothing respectful about what you're doing here, buddy. You're covering up for your masters. You're following your training. And you're essentially allowing for the murder of a president and the coup d'etat that followed to flourish. That's what you're doing, Mr. Brueys.
On November 1st, 1963, FBI agent James P. Husty visited the Payne home seeking Oswald's whereabouts. Husty's name and telephone number were found in Oswald's notebook when he was arrested after the Kennedy murder. The FBI failed to tell the Warren Commission that after Husty's visit to Marina Oswald, Oswald went to the FBI office in Dallas and left a note threatening to blow up that office and Dallas police headquarters if the FBI did not stop bothering Oswald's wife.
So let's stop. So Husty, another FBI agent, goes and visits his home. After the assassination, they get there. There's no doubt about it that he's got his number in there. Now, whether or not Oswald went and gave this note supposedly saying he was going to blow the FBI building up is true or not, I'm not sure. But I would assume, if Jason Burmis in 1963 walked into the Federal Bureau of Investigations and left a note saying that I was going to blow up the building, I'd be in jail. Okay, so first of all, I'm not quite sure that's exactly what happened here. There's no evidence of that note. It gets denied and then brought back up, and then the content of that note is basically told through other intelligence officials. So there's a lot of room to doubt this part of the story, but what we cannot doubt is that Husty had a connection. Brueys had a connection. Other FBI agents obviously had a connection. Pena named him out while he was an FBI informant, and also it looks like he was connected to the CIA. So now you have a guy like Pena FBI informant connected to the CIA, and you got a guy like Oswald, FBI informant, connected to the CIA, probably a CIA agent on top of that, as we've discussed. It's hand in glove here. So let's continue.
That is what the FBI now acknowledges was in the note. The Bureau says the note has been destroyed. The Warren Commission was told nothing about that note. The note apparently failed to alert the FBI to any special precautions in connection with the forthcoming presidential visit, and the FBI did not tell the Secret Service about that note.
James Adams, Associate Deputy Director of the FBI, told the House Judiciary Committee about the matter on October 1st.
We learned that the agent for whom the note was intended took no action other than to place it in his work box, where it continued to reside on the day of the assassination.
But on November 24th, within hours after Lee Harvey Oswald had been shot to death, Agent Hosty said he was sent for by the head of the Dallas FBI office, Gordon Shanklin.
He claimed that upon arriving in the special agent in charge's office, he was instructed by the special agent in charge to destroy both the note and the memorandum, regarding it that he had given the special agent in charge on the night of November 22.
So you see that? On the night of November 22, he was directed to destroy not only the actual evidence, but the memorandum talking about that evidence. Oh, let's just destroy some documentation from the FBI. That makes sense. Oh, let's do that.
The agent has told us that he complied with these instructions and destroyed the note and the memorandum.
FBI Agent Hosty is now assigned to the Bureau in Kansas City. He declined repeatedly to be interviewed for this broadcast. And there was another FBI cover-up in Dallas, at least one other known. The then police chief, Jesse Curry, told reporters the night of the assassination that the FBI had prior knowledge about Oswald.
With this man's apparent subversive background, was there any surveillance? Were police aware of his presence in Dallas?
We in the police department here did not know he was in Dallas. I understand the FBI did know that he was in Dallas.
Chief, do you,
practice for the FBI to inform the police?
Yes.
Chief, do you have?
We did not have.
But you were not informed.
We had not been informed of this man.
So let's stop. Day of the assassination, police chief comes out, says the FBI was following him, knew he was there. They weren't aware. Of course they were. Brueys was there following him. The documents are out. Again, I encourage you, if you have not seen my News for a Change backup channel, Kennedy's Killers Reveals, How to Name Names, and the documents I brought up, there is no doubt that Brueys was in charge of Oswald. Fair Play for Cuba Committee in New Orleans, that he was transferred over to Dallas to follow Oswald prior to the investigation, and through the documents we just showed you, he is the man that conducted the overnight analysis and initial report on the assassination that ended up being 800 plus pages. We have yet more confirmation from the police chief that day that the FBI absolutely knew that Oswald was in Dallas and they were keeping tabs on him. What's even more astonishing is that this man actually talks to Dan Rather and then says, yeah, I was told to shut up and I did semantics, wordplay. I said that I wasn't personally of that knowledge, but he knew damn well the FBI was watching Oswald.
But then, at the request of Gordon Shanklin, the agent in charge at Dallas, Curry retracted that statement, saying that he did not know of this, quote, of my own knowledge.
To Morton Dean, Mr. Curry told why that happened.
I had a phone call very shortly thereafter, and it was from Shanklin, the
Head of the FBI Bureau
in Dallas.
in Dallas.
Yes. And he seemed very upset, and he told me, or asked me, to go and make a statement retracting my statement that the FBI knew that Oswald was in Dallas. And I said, well, Shanklin, for you, I will make the statement that to my personal knowledge, he was not here. But that's as far as I will go. I will not retract the statement.
That's that's as far as I will go. So I'll play the semantics bullshit game to help with the cover-up, but I'm not going to outright lie for you. Okay? Again, the day of, he goes on the record, the FBI knew this guy was in there. All the evidence shows he's an informant for Brueys. Brueys is following him. Brueys takes control of the real initial investigation to tell the higher-ups what's actually going on. And somehow his name makes it into a fake memo that suggests the Secret Service, the FBI, and the CIA had rogue agents that did this. Come on. Give me a break. So, I mean, we're going to continue. There's one more huge point that's going to come up where they're actually warned that a militant group is going to assassinate Kennedy that day or the next day.
I interpreted it this way, that the FBI is very jealous of its reputation. And J. Edgar Hoover was fanatic about the reputation of the FBI, and didn't like to admit that they made any kind of mistakes.
It's kind of whitewashing.
A most serious allegation concerning the FBI, which does not necessarily have anything to do with Oswald, is that a teletype message was sent out of headquarters in Washington 5 days before the assassination to FBI offices in Mobile, New Orleans, and Dallas, warning that an attempt might be made to murder President Kennedy in Dallas on November 22nd. That allegation comes from William Walter. He was an employee of the FBI from 1961 to 1966. He was on overnight duty the night of November 17th. I talked to Mr. Walter in Louisiana, where he is now a bank officer.
Again.
Well, on November the 17th, I guess that's 5 days before the 22nd.
5 days before the 22nd. Look at the seriousness on this guy's face. Now, a lot of people would argue if he was just talking, well, I don't know if I can believe him. He has the document. He's going to show you the document. Because obviously, if this happened 5 days before, he's still in the office, all of a sudden the president gets killed, he's probably like, holy crap, and goes, grabs that doc, makes a copy so he has a hard copy. And God damn it, thank God he did.
I was on duty at the FBI office in New Orleans from 12 midnight until 8 in the morning. And that was, as I remembered, a Sunday morning. I received a teletype from FBI headquarters, Washington. It was a normal movement teletype indicating that the president was going to be in Dallas on the 22nd and that the FBI in Washington had information that an attempt would be made on President Kennedy's life in Dallas.
You're sure of this?
I'm positive of that. I have notes that I took back in 1963 that has the exact text of that teletype. There is one page to the teletype. It's directed to all SACs, meaning all special agent in charges, from the director. And the title or the caption of the teletype is Threat to Assassinate President Kennedy in Dallas, Texas, November 22-23, 1963, miscellaneous information concerning. And the body of the teletype, it says information has been received by the Bureau that a militant revolutionary group may attempt to assassinate President Kennedy.
Militant revolutionary group.
On his proposed trip to Dallas, Texas, November 22-23, 1963. All receiving offices should immediately contact all CIs, PCIs, logical, racial, and hate group informants and determine if any basis for this threat.
What do those initials in the bottom part of the body of the teletype mean? CIs?
Well, that's
PCIs.
Criminal informants, possible criminal informants, and of course logical hate and racial group activities are in your area.
And then what did you do?
I contacted the special agent in charge of the New Orleans office, which was Harry Maynard.
Present leadership of the FBI says they can't find any record of this teletype. Do you believe that?
No, I don't believe that.
No, I don't believe that. And he's not giddy about it. He's not smiling. He's sweating a little bit. He looks like he's going to cry. This guy is being 100% honest. And, you know, we've shown you so much stuff. Remember that document with Rowley, McCone, talks about Hoover, talks about rogue agencies. Well, part of it is maybe the Secret Service had a hand. Again, this isn't the Secret Service calling for it. This isn't the CIA. This isn't the FBI. This is a rogue network inside what you could call the deep state today. And if our president, who's promised to take out the deep state, can't even reveal what the deep state was during the assassination of the man behind me, do you think he's going to be able to take them on now? So I'm going to leave you with this clip from JFK2, the Bush connection. I interviewed this man probably well over a decade ago. But the clip here is clearly showing that the Secret Service agent that should have been right next to Kennedy as he got shot was called off so they would have an open shot. If that doesn't scream some kind of an inside job, I don't know what does.
Everything seemed normal as the president's motorcade began its journey. Everything seemed normal. That is, up until this instant. What took place is so odd that we're going to examine the scene 4 more times.
See him throwing his hands up? Let's stop. So he's at the end of that. We don't have to watch it 4 more times. We're going to just go right here. He's here at the corner by the president, and as they turn the corner to where he gets shot, he is called off of his position.
Up until this instant. What took place is so odd that we're going to examine the scene 4 more times.
There it is. Listen, we don't need to do it 4 more times. You saw it. That guy throws his hands up like, what the fuck is going on? And we know what happened then. Guys, the documents are out there. American Assassins was the documentary you just saw a little bit of a piece of. Pena is the FBI informant with CIA connections that revealed Brueys as the handler of Oswald. His own memorial service says that he made that initial investigation assembly at the request of President Johnson. Okay? The Society of the FBI, 96 and 98, makes it clear that it is 800 plus pages. And we saw him lie. And those documents that have been released by Trump clearly show he followed him from New Orleans into Dallas and then stayed in Dallas after the fact. Guys, if you're joining me for the first time, you liked what you saw, you like these deep dives. This is about the longest deep dive we've done, and I think one of the most important. We're going to do some more deep dives down the road. Obviously, it takes me quite a while to compile this stuff. That's why you don't see them every single day. But we're definitely going to be doing one on the Dancing Israelis, kind of a follow-up to that FOIA request and the release of a lot of documents that weren't out there until 2015. So be on the lookout for that. But like I said, if you like this stuff, support me. Okay, please hit that subscribe button. Thumbs this video up. Share it on social media. Make sure to ring that bell. But you know what? Forget about just ringing the bell, guys. If you want quality content on a regular basis, all you have to do is check me out over here by starring. Go up into the web browser and you just star it. And there you go. And you're done. You just come back, you check it out, you're all good. And there's going to be more and more news. So guys, thank you so much again. Go check out my other work over at News for a Change and We Are Change. Hopefully there'll be a lot more stuff over there shortly, but we will see. I'm going to be pumping out, this is the first video today, but obviously it's tough to do 6 to 10 of these type of videos. I'm going to come back. I'm going to stream some more basic news, some stuff about Iran, Nexium, and a few other subjects later today. But I want to thank everybody again for joining me on this JFK deep dive. And when people say to you, hey, we don't really know what happened, we know a lot more of what happened than people let on. So thank you once again.